All right, welcome. Can you hear me?
I can. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
All right. Okay, let's see. All righty. Here we are. All right. Happy Sunday and welcome. I am Danielle Steele Williams, founder of For the Lives of Prison Wives, and my husband, Keith Williams. If this is your first time joining us, Keith was sentenced to 14 and a half years. No, he was not. He did 14 and a half years. He was sentenced to 22 and a half years. And we both got through that sentence together and as a family. And towards the end of his sentence, the last, I'll say 3 years, I guess, I started For the Lives of Prison Wives to support those that have loved ones who are incarcerated. So today we have joining us Pastor Graves, our pastor from Bailey Tabernacle CME Church, and is here to talk to us. First of all, welcome, Pastor Graves.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
And Pastor Graves is going to talk to us today about prison ministry and why does he think prison ministry is needed. And I thought this was just a unique perspective because you're getting to hear from all three sides. The pastor, the family on the outside, and of course, the little one on the inside. All righty, so we'll just start with you, Pastor Graves. Why do you think prison ministry is something that's really a necessity?
I guess it's three big reasons. One, as Christians in general, the whole concept of redemption and liberation is part of what it means to be a Christian. We come to Christ by confessing our sins, right? So in that sense, we are all saying, I've done wrong. And we ask Jesus to forgive us. We accept that forgiveness, which is made possible by his sacrifice in our place, which means that the whole concept of Christianity is that we are people who have admitted we have not lived right. Mm-hmm. We are worthy of punishment, but we were released from that punishment because Jesus made a sacrifice on our behalf, right? So the whole concept of people who have messed up and come to God, and we create a community of people who have messed up and are getting mercy that we don't deserve. Like, that is what Christianity is. So in that sense, anybody who has messed up is somebody that we should be reaching out to as Christians, which includes prison. Second reason prison ministry is important is that everybody lives in society. And I forget the percentage, but I think it's some like less than 2% of people who are in prison are on death row, which means most people in prison are going to get out. Mm-hmm. So if you're not incarcerated, even if you've never been incarcerated, the fact is you're going to be standing in line in Walmart behind or in front of somebody who was. You're going to be at the gas station with somebody who was. And so this idea that when people go to prison, they own our problem, like, that's ridiculous, because just about everybody in prison gets out, right? So either we take action to help people who have made mistakes be able to get out and not repeat them, or you just accept that everybody who went to jail for breaking somebody's house is going to get out and break in your house. And the fact is that rehabilitation benefits society, but most prison systems aren't set up for rehabilitation. They don't. Most of them either do it badly, or they do it Sporadically, they'll have a rehab program, then they won't. They have it, they won't, which is the same as doing it badly. And that can be a lack of resources. That can be a lack of access. There's a lot of times, though, it's just a lack of, we don't care. Prisons are created to hold people and or to punish them, not to make them better people. And so whether you're talking about it as a Christian, whether you talk about it as a member of society, you want people who are incarcerated to come out better. And the third reason, for me as a preacher, the biggest reason is prison ministry is literally a command from God. At the end of Matthew chapter 25, Jesus is describing judgment. He gives this parable about the king sitting in judgment and separating people on his right hand and on his left hand, right? Mm-hmm. He separates the sheep who are his followers, put them on his right, the goats who represent his rejected or condemned on his left. And when Jesus is talking, he says there's a series of questions he asks in judgment. When I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was thirsty, did you give me something to drink? When I was a stranger, did you take me in? When I was naked, did you clothe me? When I was sick, when I was in prison, did you visit me? Those who did, even if they didn't know it, Jesus says, come up into your reward. Those who didn't, Jesus condemns them to everlasting fire. And because Jesus says, as much as you did or didn't do it to the least of these, my brothers, you did or didn't do it to me. So literally from the mouth of Jesus, prison ministry is commanded as a point of judgment. So for anyone who says, that's an extra thing, it's not something we have to do. Literally God said, no, I expect you to do this. And I'm asking you about it when you stand before me in judgment. So I don't see any reason why any church could say it's not important. It's critical.
All right. Yes, very true. And you said three important factors there. And one thing, like you said, I totally agree with is the rehabilitation aspect of prison is not in place as it should be. There are programs there. I think those programs are, and I'll let you speak more on why those programs are there because you're more familiar with it.
While you're speaking on rehabilitation, though, people hold positions where rehabilitation, you have to want to see somebody rehabilitated in order for them to be rehabilitated. And a lot of the prison system is constructed of people that don't want to see you rehabilitated. And I'm not going to say the majority, but it's almost at the point where it's the majority, but you have those few that do want to see you do well. So back to you on that.
Yes. Even since Keith has been home, we've seen he showed me some various programs that they were introduced to that should have been there to help. But as he told me, we talked about it, they just kind of touched the surface. It's not with intent to really rehabilitate. And to me, that's where the church steps in and must be involved with those people that have loved ones in prison. However, there's such a stigma that comes with, loved ones that are incarcerated that a lot of times family members or church members don't share it. So you can be sitting there right beside somebody at church and not know that their husband, their brother, their sister is incarcerated. That's even, for me, I had members in my church that did not know until recently, all those years. You're quiet because you're afraid of the judgment. But if you do open up and share, then that's when your church can support. And I can honestly say Bailey, ever since I've been at Bailey, their prison ministry has been active, especially with going into the prison to work with the prisoners or loved ones. But one aspect that I think now that people are realizing is that the family is also left behind suffering. So that's a part of ministry that also has to be focused on.
Well,
What about the? Go ahead.
also Bailey's on a whole nother level. Not only does Pastor Graves have the ministry service going as far as going in particular jails, but he goes himself. Hey, he's visited me a few times while I was incarcerated. That speaks to magnitudes of his dedication to what he's trying to achieve.
Right. You're right. He went through the application process, the process to get approved, and even visited with Keith a couple of times, and that meant so much to both of us and our family. That says a lot of his dedication and commitment to his people and to the people that are incarcerated. And further, he's worked with those right here in our city with the program that the two of us, Bailey and Fort Lauderdale Prison Wives, have started. You want to share your experience with that, Pastor Graves?
Yeah. The partnership that we created at Bailey Tabernacle between the ministry that I didn't create. I'd been doing prison ministry before I came to pastor at Bailey Tabernacle, but the ministry of the church taking that seriously, is something that dates back. I want to say it was started by Willie Clyde, but
Right.
I don't want to discredit anybody who may have been any pastor before him. But the pastor I knew who had done it was the late great Dr. Willie Clyde Jones. I had a long, very powerful, impactful prison ministry. And so when I came in, bringing my experience and connecting with that legacy that was already there, we partnered with Danielle and Keith with Fort Lauderdale Prison Wives, put together a program, piloted at Tuscaloosa Municipal Jail, which is the city and the county jail, and it focused on relationships. So when I went into the jail and worked with the men there, we were specifically working with brothers who were either married or in long-term relationships with sisters who were outside, who were not incarcerated. And the goal of the program was to work with them on the inside. I work with them on the inside, and Danielle working with the women on the outside, taking them through a parallel set of modules and courses to teach them and help them develop their relationship. Because what I found doing prison ministry was that the problem wasn't so much a lack of resources. That's a problem, and a lack of connection with programs and where to get things done. That's a problem. But the biggest problem is the soul. So it wears on brothers when they're locked up for years. But there's the brothers I work with have developed a way of coping on the inside. There's a way you handle the inside, right? But that method on the inside doesn't always work well when you apply those same tools once you're outside. Family who had in some cases been hiding it or making excuses or just not dealing with their feelings, and all of a sudden you're back together and there's this outpouring of emotion, but not all of those emotions are positive. You got to process it, you got to deal with it. And a lot of families were just unprepared for everything. A lot of men who came out were unprepared for when they took that prison armor off and they were vulnerable and their families saw, and everybody had to try to deal with everything. They just weren't prepared. And so a lot of times that breakdown, that it wasn't necessarily meaning they didn't love each other or anything, but just being able to deal, that breakdown contributed to recidivism. And so to prepare families, relationships, what you're doing with Fort Lauderdale Prison Wives, so that you're ready, you're prepared to be there for each other and deal. It doesn't fix all those things, but you're able to process it, to deal with it, to be open about it in a way that you weren't, that the way society is set up doesn't equip you. Does that make sense? And doing that, like, that's critical for families to be able to make it, to be able to get through things and handle things and start moving into their potential, rather than what often happened, which was, and I've seen this in ministry, but I've also seen it in my own family. I've seen it in, you know, my larger social groups of friends. So much can get bottled up or not addressed that people make poor decisions because they need support, but then the people that want to support them don't always know how to support them.
Mhm.
And the people who want to support them need support.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to get that support. And so having a culture of a church, a congregation that is, I don't even want to say open, just real and loving, and being able to share that in the prison, that was the focus of the ministry. And I think that's what makes the partnership between Bailey Tabernacle and For the Lives of Prison Wives different from other social partnerships I've done doing prison ministry and reentry, because it recognized the importance of that critical relationship on both sides of the walls.
Right, I agree. Yes, you said a lot. So, yes, from your experience, because like you said, I'm out here and I'm not actually in there. That's what you're doing. You have direct communication with those guys as you were going through each module. I just communicate, not just, but I had communication with Keith. So I can't say that, you know, I'm teaching him, I'm actually going through it, even though the modules were created based off of what we had gone through. Is important, like you said, for I'll just say this, a lot of times people just don't know and understand. Even us on the outside, relationships have to be learned. You know, there's just certain things that have to be taught. You may have watched your parents in their relationship and they may do something, they're going to get it right sometimes they're not, because we're imperfect people, period. You know, so what you take, you have the choice to decide, okay, am I going to follow my parents, or am I going to do this part? Am I going to take this good from them and leave the bad, or am I just going to continue to do the bad that they do? You know, and I'm not going to just say bad, but people really just don't know. You know, sometimes you just don't know, and that's the purpose of this, to teach the things that don't know, to teach how to communicate, you know, to teach how to open up and just be honest and vulnerable. And especially in this situation, because like you said, once your loved one is released, it's a whole different ballgame. You go through one journey and now you got to go through the next journey of adjustment. So, you know, it's been a year for us, but we're still adjusting to some things, you know. And I think as we go, it's still going to continue, because I'll never know what he went through in there. And guess what? He don't know what I went through out here, because a lot of times we hear about them adjusting, but you don't hear about the family having to adjust to them. So that's the point of this program, just to teach people how to manage and cope.
Can I?
And I was going to ask. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, one of the things that that has really moved me with you and Keith's story is the way you all have owned what you had to learn and been explicit to each other about it. You know, being able to say, we need to work on our communication, and then working on your communication is very different from, you don't talk to me, and that's the end of the statement. You know, and being able to be open and honest with each other about what needs to be done, and not just leaving it as that, but taking those steps to work on it. Like, those are relational skills that every successful couple ends up learning, but not every couple is as explicit about it. And I think that is what taking that and putting that into the program is an essential thing, because I've been married 26 years and we've learned a lot of things, but a lot of it was just trial and error. And, oh, I can't do that no more. That ain't gonna work if we're gonna be together. But the explicit part, the being able to say this is the thing, or say this is a problem, or say this isn't working, and then take that same problem and transform it into a goal. Like those sort of elements of what you all did in your lives and what has been put into the program. That's what makes it different, because this wasn't the first, prison in reach or reentry program that I've done. But I think that's what makes this work that you all do unique, because it empowers couples to say the problem and then solve the problem. And a lot of programs are just about, you don't want to have this problem. And it kind of doesn't deal with the fact that the problem is going to exist, but then you can do something with it. Like the two of you, your ability to just address things head on and then turn those into better. Like that's a powerful thing in you as a couple. Like, I mean, I've never told you all this, but like y'all are my Jay-Z and Beyonce. Y'all are a power couple. I mean that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely what do you call it? A work in progress.
It's always a work in progress.
Yeah.
But progress counts, and that's what it's about.
And never dull day. Never dull day.
What that mean?
Never dull day.
All right. But yeah, again, Keith, I also just want you to share your experience just with getting involved with church on the inside, because I know since Keith had first went in prison, he didn't like necessarily going to church. Because
let me speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I first got to prison, I was actually mad with God for quite some time, because I felt like, all the good things I did, all my accolades and whatnot, just because of a few bad things, I felt like he just gave up on me and tossed me away. So I kind of started getting involved with, at the time as a Nation of Islam, I used to go to Jumu'ah a lot. And then as I continued on going to Jumu'ah, kind of wasn't feeling that as well either, because it kind of seemed like there was a lot of different racial issues dealing with being a member of Nation of Islam. So I kind of backed away from that. As I, started changing different prisons, I tried going back to church, but every one prison I went to church at least once or twice in the beginning stages. And I felt like I just saw a bunch of guys that I knew what they did around the facility, and they were hypocrites. Then instead of it being church, you getting the word of some outside pastors coming in, it was just a bunch of singing. And I just didn't like it. It wasn't until like my last place I actually got to, it was this chaplain named Chaplain Douglas that I kind of like, I was faithfully going to church while I was there. Like it was like twice a week for the Christian body. And I just liked it being around Chaplain Davis. A little short white guy, man, cool to the fan. He was a lot different than any other administrators on any prisons I've ever been to. He genuinely cared about the guys. He genuinely cared about me. He would do anything within his power to try to make sure that you were good, and it was like when he preached, I would rather him preach than outside pastors come in, because his word was I was so much more receptive to his word. I don't know, it's because he's been in this environment for such a long period of time and he understands the guys that he's around, or whether or not it's just a gift that God gave him to be able to touch our hearts. And he touched my heart each and every time that he gave a sermon in there. And I felt like every time he gave a sermon, he was directing it towards me, and it made me feel this connection with him, and it made me want to go. And, and I hate that before I left, they always let us speak to the Christian body before we leave. He was out of town. I never really got the opportunity to tell him you know, what he did to me for my life and the path I was on. But I got to tell the body to be like, man, give Chaplain Douglas this message for me, you know. But it's plenty of sermons he gave where I actually teared up sitting out there in the congregation. And I just, you know, that's kind of like when I kind of came back into the fold, because I'm one of the ones that, you know, I have to be like receptive to the word that I'm getting, because it's the message that catches me. It's not just me being in church, it's the message, you know. But as I got more into it, I learned that, you know, God rebukes the ones that he loves in order to recreate them in his image. You know, I've learned those things, you know, and now I'm back in church. I mean, unfortunately, I'm doing a little virtual church right now. I don't know when when the Reverend wants to open back up the doors, but, you know, we're trying to be safe here at Bailey Tabernacle. So, you know, whenever it does happen, I'll definitely be in the fold in the congregation. But until then, I'm just doing a little virtual ministry right now, just trying to keep the spiritual food coming in. But that's kind of how I got back into the fold of going back to church.
All righty. Yeah, and I just thought that was important that you shared that, just because, like, even what you said at the beginning, it takes people on the inside that actually have a genuine heart and really want to see the people make a change. And that's why, to me, it's so important. Just as important as we have somebody on the inside, it's just as important as we have the same type of ministry that's genuine on the outside.
But while you say that, that's one of the reasons why some guys come out worse than when they went in. Because it's like when you're at school and you might have a student and you've been a teacher that's not as attentive as other students, but you might have some that, you know, other teachers have a lot of problems with, but they cling to you. They like coming to your class. I've been with you in stores multiple times where you were like, a student ran up to you and you were like, oh, he was so bad, but he wasn't like that in my class. It's because you had a connection with him. You were one of the ones that made him want to learn. And they have people in those positions, even when you're in prison, that you want them to see you do well. But it's so many that's not like that guys just stay on the same path that they're on. They don't come out. Some of us just don't come out any better than before we went in. And it's factual with dealing with the recidivism rate. You know, they're in a position to really change the individual's lives while they're in prison. You know, they're in that position, and it's nothing. I can't speak on the state system, but on the federal system, they're not underfunded. You know, they're overfunded, and they use a lot of the things they're funding for to get their own capital gains. You know, they have so much money at their disposal to be able to do these things to make sure that an inmate has a successful reentry into society and does not come back. But it's one of those things I always tell you that goes back to economics. They want you to come back. They want you to come back because there's a lot of different hands in this particular cookie jar. So, you know, until they start getting the system situated to where it's more oversight, that's one of the things they were talking about when we went to DC to speak with Congress, was a lot of, you know, the BOP having oversight. Until there's actual oversight, a watchdog actually sitting on top of them that is not involved in their specific entity, a lot of the things are going to remain the same.
I agree. It's really nothing else to say to that, because that's exactly how it is.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
So, Pastor Gray, do you have any closing remarks?
Just, I would encourage anybody, anybody who claims to be a Christian, whether you're a pastor, preacher, or just a member of a church, or even if you're not a member of the church, if you claim Christianity, to really take a look at how you can get involved with prison ministry, how you can get involved with this. And it's not every prison ministry isn't doing church inside a prison. That is some people's calling, but that's not the only thing that needs to be done. And whether you make that connection through your church, through a community nonprofit, or whatever it is, to look at how you can do this. I think we need to I think it's one of many things that we've sort of abdicated to the government or whoever to do. But whether the government does it or not, it's still our call. It's still our task that's placed on us by God. So I would just encourage anybody to get involved, and anybody who's got a loved one who is incarcerated or has been released and is struggling. I'm gonna plug y'all. Connect with this team that and this work that Danielle's putting together for the lives of prison wives. We can make a difference, I believe, and we should.
Yes, we can. And thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Yes. And thank you, Miss Hey Ma for joining us. And Lakeisha says, definitely the criminal justice system is faulty. My husband comes home soon and I'm seeking him help. He has served 20+ years and he will need some help, definitely. Yes, because 20 years, yeah, like 2 decades, that's almost, and it's no way for you to not be impacted, by that. So I'm so happy that your husband is coming home, and blessings to you and your husband. And hello, neighbor, and thank you, Miss Lewis, for watching. All right, so with that being said, any loyal ladies, or if you see this video again, make sure you drop replay in the comments. That way it reaches more people. Also, if you are a loyal lady, you have a loved one that's incarcerated, our August boxes, the subscription boxes, are available now to purchase. Go check them out. And these are boxes because I know what it's like not to have your loved one home. So go check them out. Last month's boxes went out and the ladies loved them. So, they're carefully curated, gifts picked out for you. And we're getting ready to kick off kids' boxes as well. So go check that out at the website. All righty. And also Prayers Over Prison Wife. Don't forget that. Amazon or on forthelives.prisonwives.com. All right. So check us out. And we will see you guys, I will say, next Sunday. All righty.
Appreciate you, Pastor Grace.
Always. Number love, bro.
Yes, sir.